Zimbabwe for tuning into yet another informative edition of your program. This is Agricultural New Directions, Agribusiness in support of Vision 2030. Now today we are going to be looking at wine production, wine making right here in Zimbabwe. You would find that the winemaking industry generally in Zimbabwe hasn't had much uptake. We don't see a lot of Black Zimbabwean farmers getting into the production of wine for reasons unknown. But today we are going to be demystifying and talking about the experience of winemaking here in Zimbabwe. We are here in Marondera, Mashonaland East, where we are going to be looking beginning from the vines, the varieties, the yield per hectare, and the necessary precautions you need to take if you are going to be producing tasty wine. Come along. As I have highlighted earlier on, today we are going to be looking at winemaking and wine production in Zimbabwe. It is very possible, it is taking place. We do have farmers who have taken heed to the cause of enhancing their production systems. To discuss this and more, I have taken the liberty of inviting Fidelis Muhunde. He's going to be taking us through the nitty-gritties from grapes production up to the manufacturing of wine. Fidelis, thank you for joining us today.
You're welcome, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay.
As we get into our discussion, Fidelis,
wine
production emanates from grapes cultivation or grapes establishment. Can you highlight the varieties that you are having here at this farm that lead to the production of the various types of wines that we are seeing today?
Okay. So, we have 11 varieties of grapes. So, when it comes to the choice of our grapes, we're usually considering our climate mostly, because considering the fact that they do not very much originate from this side.
Yes.
When we're choosing our varieties, we try by all means to choose varieties that can be able to sustain themselves in our climate, considering the fact that we have like a bit of warm temperatures for our vines, because they require very cool temperatures. So the varieties we have chosen to plant here, we have Viognier, we have Chardonnay, we have Alicante Bouschet, Semillon, Dattel, Elihan, or Honeypot. We have Cabernet Sauvignon, Sauvignon Blanc, we have Cabernet Franc. So on all those varieties, we have both wine grapes and table grapes. For your table grapes, those are the ones that we use mostly to make, mostly as our fruits.
Okay.
Yeah, mostly as our fruits.
Okay. Those
so
that we see in supermarkets?
Exactly, the ones that you would see in your supermarket. Those are your table grapes. They're very much nice, as you can tell.
Yes.
And they have a very soft skin compared to your wine grapes. For your wine berries, they have a thicker skin. So when you're having a wine grape, you would mostly taste the taste of the skin and also the juice. So it is a bit sour when you taste it. You would understand, like from our homesteads, we have wine grapes.
Yes.
People mostly grow wine grapes, the ones they would put on their sheds and everything.
And they're a bit bitter. They're not that sweet.
Exactly. This is the sourness I'm talking about.
Yes.
So that is from the skins, because of the thickness of the skin. So when you're chewing it, you will end up getting the taste of the skin. When it comes to your sugar concentrates, your wine grapes have more sugars than your table grapes. But due to that thickness of the skin, you'd probably think that the table grapes are actually sweeter than your wine grapes. Because when you're having a table grape, you're tasting mostly the pulp, which is the middle part, the juice and the flesh. So the skin, you have a bit of it. But for your wine grapes, you're actually getting both. So that's why you'll get that soury bitterness you're talking about. Exactly.
Now, Fidelis, you'll find that as you continue, we are surrounded by bees.
Yeah.
There are bees that are circulating. They are not flies. I should mention that to our audience there at home.
Okay.
They are not flies. They are actually bees. My wine glass actually has just had 2 bees drop inside of it. Can you maybe highlight what is taking place? Why do bees find wine intriguing so much?
So bees do not find wine intriguing. It's not about the wine at all. Not at all. It's just because of the sugar.
Okay.
So you will have bees in our vines. They're actually getting the sugar from the berries, from the fruit itself. So what happens is, as we harvest, as time goes on, you will have your bees following that sugar in the berries up to the production side.
Okay.
So because we have finished all the berries from our fields, the bees are now mostly this side. And also, I have to mention we have some beehives from close to our to the end of our vines.
Okay.
So that's where they'll be coming from. So that's why we have more. Actually, now they're less because there's less sugar now because the wine is fermented. The actual wine they do not care about. It's
They
the
want
sugar.
the grapes.
Yeah, it's the sugar
Okay.
they're following.
Now, Fidelis, can we talk about from planting, from establishment up to maturity?
Yeah.
Generally, when can a farmer expect their first harvest?
So when it comes to planting, specifically planting your vines, it will take about 5-6 years
Okay.
when you can start to produce your wine, because grape quality increases with time. For example, we have our Alicante Boucher. It's the oldest variety that we have. That is an estimate of 90 years old. We're expecting it to have the highest grape quality because it is the oldest that we have.
Oh, 90
So,
years.
yeah, 90 years. So what happens is when you plant them, you'd expect to start harvesting at about 3 years. Yep. But when it comes to winemaking, you want it to be of a better quality. That is your grape. So it will take a bit more time to make a good wine, actually, because when it comes to winemaking, it all begins in your vines. The grape quality that you come in with will determine your wine. You'll make good wine from a good grape. You can also make bad wine from a good grape.
Okay.
Yeah, but it takes you to have a good grape to be able to make good wine. It is probability. With a bad grape, you cannot make good wine.
Now, Fidelis, as we round off this segment,
Yeah.
the name of the program is Agribusiness, where we discuss business fundamentals. At the end of the day, the farmer wants to gauge and to analyze and ascertain whether
Exactly.
is it good for me to uptake this enterprise? Is it viable? Will I make money? And the money lies within the yield per unit area.
Exactly.
So roughly per hectare, how many kilograms or tons do you expect of grapes?
So per hectare, we would expect a different amount because different varietals will produce different yields each year.
Okay.
For example, this time our Viognier, it gave us a very good yield of 6 tons.
Okay.
So considering that is less than a yield, as you saw when we
Yes.
were walking through the vines.
Yes, it's less than a hectare.
Yeah, it's less than a hectare, I mean.
Okay.
So it produced more grapes than we had expected. And it depends on the year, actually.
Okay.
It depends on how fortunate we are. But we'll expect something like 3 tons or even more per hectare.
On that note, first, we're going to go on a short commercial break. We'll be right back with this and more in the second segment. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, viewers. We are here in the second segment of your program, Agricultural New Directions, Agribusiness, where we are looking at winemaking and wine production here in Zimbabwe. We are talking of becoming an upper middle class economy by year 2030. Now, viewers, we encourage you to be a part of these conversations. Feel free to get in touch with the producer, Wadzanai Manyore. It's on 0772-807-506. Alternatively, you can like our Facebook page, Agribusiness with Wadzanai. Leave your comments and suggestions on our Twitter handle. It's at Agribusiness with Wadzanai. Make a follow-up in this episode and more. We now have a YouTube channel which is very vibrant, where we can alert us on which episodes you want us to do more. It's at Agribusiness with Wadzanai. Fidelis, thank you so much for joining us in the second segment. Welcome back.
Thank you, ma'am.
As we get into our discussion, Fidelis,
Yeah.
can we talk about the fertilizer regimen or application that you use? I can see that you do have healthy vines.
Yeah.
The stems are thick. As, in as much as you finished harvesting, you can still see that you have healthy leaves,
Yeah.
healthy looking vines. Can we talk about the fertilizer regimen? Do you apply any fertilizers or is all natural?
So what we do is we try by all means to keep it as natural as we can. So for the fertility of the soil, you know, the more you apply artificial fertilizers, the more it requires even more.
Exactly.
Yeah, with time. So what we do is we try by all means so that we do not get to be having to purchase, you know, as considering as it is a business, you'll be using even more money to maintain your vines. So what we're actually doing is we do apply some nitrates on our fertilizers directly on our plant. We do spray, considering the fact that these vines have been here for a bit of a long time now. So apart from that, we do apply manure directly. We have some cattle we have here. So we take our dung, we apply it on our vines, just in able to enhance the fertility naturally, you know. That makes it even more simple. But for your vines, as you're starting to grow them, they do not require that much of fertilization because it is a tree. Its roots will grow deep into the ground, unlike every other weed that is around. So with the first years, you do not actually need to apply that much of fertilizers.
Okay. I want us to talk about chemical application. I understand that there are times that you are headed towards either be it harvesting or be it the emergence of fruits.
Yeah.
Do you use any chemicals to protect your grapes or the fruit from attack from pests or diseases? And how do you ensure that your vine field is disease-free?
So that's a very nice question. That is a very nice question. When it comes to our vines, pest control-wise, we're dealing with beetles. You know, when we're talking about grape quality, we're talking about mostly the sugar concentrates in our berries, because that's what we're dealing with in fermentation. Yeah, in winemaking, exactly. So what we do, the beetles, they eat the leaves. So with eating the leaves, as they are the ones that are actually producing the sugars, that affects our quality. So we spray for beetles. We do spray for beetles. We also have powdery mildew. We also spray for powdery mildew in able to control it. And ensuring the health of our vines now, we have a very beautiful looking control system that we have. It's very nice when you look at it, because we're using roses specifically.
Yes, I noticed.
You noticed there is roses.
Every row begins.
Exactly.
The first step of every row, you do have a beautiful shrub
Yeah.
of white roses.
Of roses.
Yes.
Yes, they're not only white. Specifically for the Viognier variety, we use the white roses. But for other varieties, we also have different types of roses. With roses, what happens is they're the same family with your vines when you're talking about it biologically. So as they're the same family, they're affected by similar infections. So when it comes to your roses now, they have less resistance than the vine itself. So if there's a new infection, we get to see it first on the roses before it gets to the vines. So that gives us an advantage to treat everything at once before we run a loss on our vine itself.
Now, Fidelis, we are here in the rainy season, whereby rains generally come with diseases and certain pests. Can you talk about the key fundamentals when it comes to grapes production that a Zimbabwean farmer needs to look out for? This episode, many are going to be interested, saying maybe I just want 1 hectare to produce my grapes.
Yeah.
Can you talk about the key fundamentals that ensure that at the end of the day, you are harvesting something? Because if you are not careful, you might have your hectare of stems or vines, but they produce nothing after maybe 6 years.
Yeah.
So the key fundamentals that a Zimbabwean farmer needs to take cognizance of to ensure that he is producing quality grapes in the quantities that are required to make sure that you facilitate way for winemaking or wine production.
Yeah. So when you're doing winemaking, considering that you're like us, we are making our wine from our own vineyard. So first you have to consider the terrain, yeah, the way your land is on its own, the climate itself. You would understand that our region has like mostly like warm winters.
Yes.
Yeah, they're not like that cold.
That's Marondera for you.
That's Marondera, exactly.
Yes.
And guess what? We're actually very close to Marondera. So that gives us an advantage for us. It's cold. It's cold from this side. You know, other people would actually not be able to stand the cold we have this side. Yeah. So that is an added advantage to our vines. So what happens is the coldest temperatures that we have in winter, that's when we start our pruning. Yeah, so pruning happens in winter. That's when the vine itself goes dormant. So first you have to consider the temperatures in your area, and then when it also comes to the land, like I was saying, the orientation that we have, you can see that our vines are grown on slopy land.
Exactly, the topography is different.
Exactly.
You can see that if there are slides and positions that you have your sunlight directly hitting
Exactly,
the field.
exactly.
Yes.
As you can see, it's very much clearer from that angle now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Beautiful
So
scenery, I should say.
yeah. So what happens is our vines, they do not require very much excess water. It is a tree. It needs a lot of water, but not too much of it. Considering that we are working on sugar concentrates, what would happen is if there is too much water, the plant takes up a lot of it, so it dilutes the sugar concentrates in your plant. The plant will ripen, yes, to the right stage, but then it has a lot of water than the sugar. So that will actually affect our grape quality, considering that we are, like I said earlier, we are working on the sugar concentrates in our grapes. So when it's now the rainy season, like you were saying, the water gets to flow down the slope, so that the plant just takes enough for it to sustain itself and also to continue producing without taking excess. Exactly. Yes, it goes into our dam, and that's the same dam that we'll be using for irrigating our plants during the dry season. Yeah.
Very calculated, I should say.
Yeah.
We're going to go on a short commercial break. We'll be right back with this and more in the third and final segment. Stay tuned. Welcome back, viewers. We are here in the third and final segment of your program, where we are looking at the grapes value chain, and today we are looking at wine production, which emanates from grapes cultivation or establishment. Fidelis, we are here in the third and final segment. Welcome back.
Yeah, thank you, Waza.
As we get into the conclusion of this episode, Fidelis, I want you to talk about the initial stages of production.
For winemaking, it is a very simple procedure. It's a very simple procedure because it is pretty much natural, you know, considering that you're using your living organisms to make your wine, like how you'd use your kettle to plant your maize. Yeah, it's a very simple thing. So for us, what we do is when we're harvesting our berries, like I said, we harvest them in bunches. You can't pluck them off one by one because your wine berries, they're very much closely packed. And for your table grapes, they are much spacious when it comes to their orientation on the bunch. But mostly we are using the wine berries. So as we cannot pluck them off one by one, we harvest them in bunches. Our bunches, we put them in the black tins that we then go with to the destemming crusher. So what the destemming crusher does is it removes the stems from your bunches so that you're left with your berries only. So in that same process, it crushes the berries a bit so that if you're making your white wine, you can press out the juice much simpler than it would be if they are on stems. For your red berries now, what you do is after you destem them, after you remove the stems, considering that they have the juice inside, but the juice is lighter than is much heavier actually than the skins. So what it would do is it will go under the skins.
Also, the skins are the ones that we've seen been floating.
Exactly.
On top of those containers.
Exactly. Because the juice is heavier in terms of density and weight. So it goes under the skins. So what you do is you frequently plunge your skins so that you mix the juice and your skins at the same time, so that your skins stay moist, because as they dry up, they have a chance of even going bad.
Can we talk about, as we conclude, Fidelis, can you also touch on fermentation? I heard you mentioning fermentation in the first segment. What is fermentation in winemaking and how is it done?
So Basically, fermentation is winemaking. Yeah. When you're making wine, it is fermentation. So that is the breaking of the sugar concentrates that are in your juice, that is your grape juice, converting it into alcohol. So we are using yeast. That is the strain that we use. The yeast is naturally existing in the atmosphere. You have some yeast that is already on your berries before you inoculate with your own yeast. But that type of yeast, that is the wild yeast, at some point it might not be able to stand the alcohol percentage that we are actually targeting. Or what happens is it does not get to be able to express itself fully before the time we will be targeting. Because for us, we want our fermentation to take about 2 to 3 weeks so that we can say our wine is ready. So what we do, we inoculate with our yeast. For us, we use Anchor N96 for our white, Vin 13 for our reds. That specific yeast, it has the characteristics that helps it to stand the concentrations of alcohol or the percentage of alcohol that is in your wine during fermentation and even through it.
Okay.
So yeah, so during fermentation, the yeast itself, it consumes the sugar. In consuming the sugar, it gives back alcohol, heat, and carbon dioxide. As we went through the tanks, you saw that there was a bubbling effect in our wine. It was like it's boiling,
Exactly.
but there is no heat that we've put in through the tanks. It's just a natural process. So that boiling is because of the. It's not actually boiling, but
The
that
bubbles.
effect, yeah, that effect is actually the carbon dioxide that is being released in your wine.
Okay. Can you talk to our audience there at home in terms of the pitfalls or what they need to look out for if they are going to get into this enterprise?
For the viewers, if you're going to get into winemaking, mostly what you have to do is you have to control your pests. Yeah, for your pests, because you know that is a very it looks small, but it's a very high effect when it comes to the quality of what you're producing. This is an organic what can I say, an organic
Enterprise.
product.
Okay.
Yeah, an organic product. It mostly requires on the natural environment. It embarks on the natural environment. So as it does so, the control of the natural environment will help you to enhance the quality that you're getting at the end of the day. So controlling your pests, like I said, we also have powdery mildew. It attacks in relation to the region you are at, but it is also wise just to be able to control it before it actually attacks, before you see it. So those are the things that you have to be controlling: your pests, your your fungus, yeah, and also you have to consider the terrain. It is important. It is very much important, because you'll grow your vines on land that does not sustain them.
Or with poor drainage.
Exactly, or with poor drainage, it actually affects your vines. So all that now, you have to consider it. But at the end of the day, winemaking is very much a very productive business, and it would benefit you.
It was a pleasure, Fidelis, having you with us today.
Yeah.
There you heard it, viewers. We were talking of wine production, and as we're concluding, Fidelis here was telling us of the pitfalls and the challenges that we might encounter as you get into wine production or grapes establishment. From me, your host was Zanai Manyore. I'm also on Instagram. It's a W Manyore, and the crew behind the scenes. Have yourselves a fabulous evening. Thank you for watching.